Imagine you're a teacher scared of Gen AI, and you're worried about the use of it corrupting the authenticity of real student answers, and you feel like the benefits, the philosophy, the reasoning behind teaching is all being wiped away the better and better these generative AI systems get. Well, some psychologists say that instead of worrying about these kinds of things, what you should do in this circumstance is advocate for better teaching methods and for the uniqueness and the gift that is the student voice. And that's not completely dissimilar to what characters in one of the best sci-fi franchises of all time will say to other characters who are also fearful of AI and being taken over by robots. I thought that making a comparison between the fear that teachers and artists and professionals and the average person is having of generative AI to the fear that people in shows like Star Trek would have was interesting. We should see whether there's a way that we can understand this fear and perhaps overcome it. But just before we get into it, hi, I'm Inozia. I use psychology and humor to discuss fiction. So if you like this video or this channel, please engage with it some way so that the algorithm does not toss me aside like a used tampon. Thank you. So in case you weren't aware, Star Trek is this massive show. It's got girlies like me, girlies like my dad, obsessed with the story. And it's a bit different from more mainstream franchises like Star Wars because it has a different vibe. It's more serious. It's less big epic fantasy story. It's more sci-fi. You know, it's more science, it's more fiction, it's more diplomacy, it's more space travel. It's more focused on stories that you would get from exploring space rather than a massive overarching fun crazy family drama that Star Wars is. And it has much less to do with powers as well. It's got much less to do with crazy stuff like that. It's more to do about thinking about strategy. But in Star Trek Next Generation, one of the shows I actually did watch when I was younger as well, there was a villain introduced called the Borg that really shook the core of the strategy, that mentality, that simple, we're gonna solve these puzzles. It was almost like a detective show at some point, Star Trek. It really did throw a wrench in that, threw some more fantastical parts into it in a way, with the way that the Borg came to be and the way that the Borg just manifested out of thin air, just like some crazy fantasy creature ready to kill you. The Borg is an alien group of cybernetic organisms using tech with organic matter who are linked in a hive mind called the Collective. And they, like I said, have an abrupt introduction. They come, they hurt, they kill, they take over, they try to, at the very least, before being stopped by Starfleet, the main fleet that we focus on. And the Borg, like generative AI, are very much feared for very similar reasons. For one, the Borg cannot be reasoned with. It's you will be assimilated. You know, it's not something you can have a conversation. You don't go to the Borg, you're hey yo, Borg, you can't do all of this shit with the Borg. They will not talk to you. All they'll say is, hey yo, you want to join my pyramid scheme? Like, they will immediately try to assimilate you into the Collective. This is not a scam, I swear to God. Like, they will not listen and they cannot be trifled with or reasoned with. It is something that a lot of people, I think, also talk about with ChatGPT and OpenAI. You can't tell them, hey, don't use from this part of the database, don't copy from this part of the internet, or yada yada. It doesn't really work. They kind of are built on what they're built on. There's only so much that you can do when you're communicating with them, and you can't change the coding. Obviously, it's not open source like that. It is coded, there are versions put out, and so a lot of artists have to sue, for instance, if they use your art to create AI art, because it's just difficult for you to get into their minds and to combat it, just like the Borg won't listen. And so this fear, and this part of the fear, is actually very understandable. They're also scary because they're very strong. They're tough foes who Starfleet, the people in the show that you've seen defeat, people who are crazy strong, and so they are going to be very strong and very cool characters. They can't even beat them easily. So how are we, the average watcher, supposed to even take on the Borg. You know, they're just this force. And similar way, the way that AI really swooped in and took over so many companies. You know, the job market, for instance, right now, it's ass. It's so tough to find stable employment for so many people, and a lot of that reasoning is because of the AI that they're using, the AI systems they're using. They might not be considered Gen AI, but it is still a part of artificial intelligence that is really impacting how recruitment's working. It's revolutionized, it's completely transformed recruitment. Some may say for the worse, some may say for the better. Regardless, it has had such a strong change and shift that the general public cannot fight back against it, you know? Same with I was saying with the lawyers and having to sue AI systems for using your art or something like that. These are on scales that people like me, you and me cannot, maybe you're established and amazing, but me and most of the viewers who are watching, we cannot fight back easily against these systems, and that adds to the fear. They're scary also because they're unrelenting, like a zombie virus. Like, they can't be stopped, and even if you were to stagger them, then you'd have to fight these massive systems who are so super strong. So if we're talking about the zombie virus thing, we're talking about the progression of AI. You know, how quickly it changed from the beginning and how quickly it's changing from now. Like the Borg, who every iteration they come back stronger and crazier and crazier. You even get to the point where you see the hive mind in a humanoid form, this woman who is a super interesting character, and then you see different advancements over time of the Borg. I watched this really great video summarizing the history of the Borg and how much better they got at the more species they assimilated, even though they tended to lose against Starfleet. It really does show the quick progression in the grand scheme of things that AI is having. It seems super quick, it's not. However, in comparison to other things, it is really quick, and the way that it's impacting people is very scary, and the progression, the potential that it has in the future is almost unforeseen at this point. Like, how we can't even know where the limits or the ceilings will be. At least the general public finds it hard to understand where the ceiling is going to be and where it's going to land and crash, because it just keeps getting better and better every year. And not to mention, what we have access to is nothing compared to what the industry is going to have access to, like I said, with the recruitment, but also animation studios, for instance. And so it is spooky. But there is a glimmer of hope. There is one notable exception in the Borg that shows that they are not infallible, and that shows that they will be able to be defeated at some point, and that there is a way to do it. And I believe that there was a more permanent way near the end. But if we're talking about Next Generation, Voyager era, 7 of 9 from Star Trek Voyager, the show was part of the Borg, and then she was separated from the hive mind, and she is now a character on the ship Voyager, and she was a part of the crew. And that's very important because it shows a light. It shows how you can leave the collective, or somebody could leave the collective and become an individual. And while I can't think of an exact comparison, in terms of Gen AI, we're thinking about the way that we're using generative AI. Because a lot of the time that people are scared about generative AI, they're not thinking about the fact that generative AI is available for most people, or at least some version of it is available for free or for a very cheap price for most people. You know, people make videos of AI voices, which I haven't even mentioned in this video yet, like a lot of AI voices that people are using on YouTube, and to make music and songs as well, and to translate people's voices into different languages. These tools are tools. You know, these are things that seem like overwhelming, like they're just going to take over, like the Borg. They're just going to just completely wipe us out. But they are just tools. They're just tools that are made for us to use to better our lives and to better the way we are working and to better the way that we live, and just for fun, some of it, you know, it's just to enjoy ourselves. And so to worry about it like it is something unrelenting, something super strong, something that is like a virus, it can't ever be stopped, is incorrect, because there is a light at the end of the tunnel. You know, the better AI gets, the better it will get for us. And if we can find out ways to use these tools the same way that people in the industry are using these tools, then we will be propelled and advanced as the AI becomes advanced. And so that is the answer. The Borg are creepy, but the overarching story gives us hope for the future. The same way that AI can be seen as creepy, but realizing it's a tool and using them as a tool and learning to use them as tools gives us hope for the future. What this comparison shows is that it's not necessarily the computer that's scary, but it's the fact that something taking away our agency is what's scary. I mean, unless you have cyberphobia, of course. But I watched a session hosted by a very world-renowned publishing house in Europe, and they said the more advanced the AI gets in writing stories, the less likely they're going to accept it. You know, they are not at all for AI, because in the place when AI is taking over our agency, taking over our voices, that's what's the problem. That's what's concerning people the most. It's not just the strength, it's not just the advancements, it's not just all of that. I want to bring us back to the study in the beginning just to say that no matter why we're scared, no matter what happens in the future, as long as we make sure as the advancements of AI gets better and better, to one, use them as tools, and in the times where people will try to use them to replace the human voice, combat against that. Advocate for the human voice, advocate for human art, for human creativity, and ensure that the systems don't try to take over this human voice and this creativity. And if that is something that happens, you know, that we use them as tools, we maintain integrity and human authenticity, and we make sure the systems don't violate that, then, I mean, we'll be fine. We will be fine no matter what happens. At least that's what I think. So I hope this helps anyone who was scared about generative AI. If you want to do one thing, subscribe. Otherwise, let me know if you agree down below. And then I say quick goodbye. So if you want some sci-fi recs that are Star Trek and very similar to Star Trek, so I'd say Next Generation, really good. Voyager, really good. Battlestar Galactica, super good. And then Astro Lost in Space is pretty good as well, anime. So, you know, if you're not prepared, then you know. And yeah, that's my recs that come off the top of my head right now, because sci-fi is not just Star Wars, I'll tell you that now. And if you thought that, you're missing out, so check out the things I just recommended. Check them out.